Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator, was one of America's most beloved presidents. Could his story possibly have a dark and shocking side? Maybe there is a twist in the tale of Lincoln's abolishment of slavery, of his days prior to entering the White House, of his entire life. Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a backwoods cabin 3 miles south of Hodgenville, Kentucky, and moved with his family to a farm in the neighboring valley of Knob Creek when he was 2 years old. His early life consisted of harsh living conditions and loads of exhausting work on farms from a very early age. Lincoln himself noted that the days of his youth were his least favorite, until he found a bit of joy working on a ferry boat sailing up and down the Mississippi River. Regardless of his rough youth, Lincoln was always considered to be a man full of potential, extremely intelligent, physically strong, well-spoken, and capable of succeeding at just about anything. The first bit of attention Lincoln got in his life was for a rather weird reason. After moving to Illinois, Lincoln quickly landed a job working as a clerk in a store in a small town called New Salem. Since the store was the general meeting place for the community, people quickly recognized Lincoln, as he stood out with his tall, lanky frame and his rather ugly face. It was outside of the store where Lincoln beat the local bully of the town in a wrestling bout, after which he became extremely popular within the community, understandably. The local hero Lincoln went on to wrestle in over 300 unofficial matches, and after his passing was even recognized and presented into America's Wrestling Hall of Fame. Quite the achievement considering what he would later become. Apart from being an exceptional athlete, Abe was extremely literate, smart, and ambitious. His goal was the same from the start: becoming a renowned politician and changing the world for the better. Still, before Lincoln inserted himself into politics, his career path took yet another turn. Lincoln and his friend opened a small liquor shop in New Salem. They later turned the shop into a bar, and Lincoln even got a hold of his bartender license, making him the only president ever to do so. A hard-working man with enormous ambitions, Lincoln could do it all. Next stop, politics. Lincoln officially announced his candidacy for a seat in the Illinois state legislature, declaring himself as an independent candidate, and yet again, his life took a sharp turn. The Black Hawk War broke out. Driven by his love for the country, Lincoln didn't think twice before volunteering to fight in the war. He served 3 short stints in the military but saw no action. His military tour prevented him from campaigning for office, as he had too little time to make himself known to a larger public before the voting was to take place. So once more, career plot twist. Lincoln decided to study law on his own, and would later go on to pass the state bar exam. In 1837, he got his license and was officially recognized as a lawyer. Was there anything this man couldn't do? After his short span as a lawyer, Lincoln officially began his political career. It didn't take him much to get noticed, especially when he denounced President Martin Van Buren for once stating that free black people should have the right to vote. Lincoln appealed to the racism of the overwhelming majority of Illinois voters and was making quite the name for himself. Nowadays, with his views on ethnicity, Lincoln would most definitely be labeled a white supremacist. Although he opposed slavery, he did not believe that black and white people should be equal and have the same rights. But instead of enslaving them, Lincoln aimed to rid America of those he declared unworthy, in a quote-unquote legal way. Lincoln quickly rose through the ranks of American politics as his smart decisions and calculated risks were paying off. He frequently took the moral high ground over his opponents in a way that left Americans impressed. But despite his growing popularity, he never managed to climb to the top of the ladder, falling short in numerous elections for numerous spots. The disappointed Lincoln took a step back from politics and resumed his legal practice. In 1854, he was angered by the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which opened the territories to slavery, causing him to re-enter the political scene, this time as the leader of the Republican Party. In 1860, he ran for the presidency in a rather strange way. He didn't give a single speech, and his partners did most of the work for the campaign. But they seemed to have done a good job as he was elected, as the 16th president. Lincoln's presidency was turbulent from the start. Plots to assassinate him began as soon as he won the election. Not long after his mandate began, the Civil War broke out. Lincoln stated that his plan for banning the expansion of slavery was the spark that lit up the war, and he was heavily criticized for underestimating the crisis at hand. Nevertheless, Lincoln took full control of the Union military, and his decisive actions, along with blatant disregard for the Constitution, ultimately won them the war. On January 1, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which ensured freedom for all those enslaved in the Confederate areas of the South. This was arguably one of history's biggest turning points, but it came with a shocking plan in the background. Before ever stepping foot into the White House, Lincoln's idea of America's future didn't feature people of other races. Instead, he envisioned the colonization of emancipated slaves across the other side of America's borders. He backed this idea up with the fear of quote-unquote black people overrunning the North, and his assumption that they want to return to their homelands. The African Americans strongly disagreed with this plan but had no say in the matter. In order to test his idea, Lincoln ordered the relocation of about 500 former slaves, using a ship that would sail to an island near Haiti. A second ship, which was supposed to follow them with supplies, never set sail in the first place. Dozens died on the journey due to numerous diseases, and even more upon arrival, as the living conditions on the island were inhumane to say the least. After the failed project and public outrage, Lincoln had no choice but to abandon his colonization plans and instead find a way to integrate millions of emancipated African Americans into regular society. The failed project ultimately helped create and pass the 13th Amendment, declaring slavery illegal in 1865. Shortly after this disaster, following his decisive victories in the ongoing war, Lincoln was re-elected for a second term. On April 9, 1865, the Union Army officially won the war. April 14th, President Lincoln is sitting in Ford's Theater in D.C. watching a play. A man sneaks up behind him and yells, "The South is avenged," as he shoots Lincoln in the back of the head. Less than 24 hours later, Abraham Lincoln was pronounced dead, a tragic end to one of history's most famous figures. Abraham Lincoln paved the path we try to follow today. Although surrounded by controversy, the good he's done for the world can still be felt today, and the tale of his death is still being discussed, bearing similarities to the death of President Kennedy. A mystery we already uncovered. Check out this video if you want to know more than you already do. Subscribe to the channel if you made it to the end, and why not leave a like on the video. Until the next one.